Prime Minister Narendra Modi has left Australia and landed in New Zealand for a visit that carries historic significance. This is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to New Zealand in nearly 4 decades. It is the final stop on his three-nation Indo-Pacific tour, carrying a freshly signed trade deal, a defense conversation, and one uncomfortable issue Wellington would rather not discuss: Khalistan. New Zealand's own Prime Minister says 57% of his country's exports to India will be tariff-free from day one. Can India finally unlock a trade deal that remained frozen for years? Will New Zealand become another key partner in India's Pacific strategy? The answer lies in security, supply chains, diplomacy, and the battle for influence across the Indo-Pacific. The centerpiece of Modi's agenda in Wellington is the India-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. Negotiations launched in March 2025, wrapped up by December, and the deal was formally signed on April 27th this year. It covers goods, agriculture, and MSME development, services and technical cooperation, and investment and people mobility. A day before Modi's arrival, New Zealand PM Wellington made the announcement himself on social media that 57% of everything New Zealand exports to India will be tariff-free from day one. That's a real immediate win for New Zealand's exporters, and PM Modi's visit is expected to build directly on it, with more talks on deepening trade and commercial ties. Now here's why this deal matters more than it might look on paper. Total merchandise trade between India and New Zealand grew at 8% a year from FY22 to FY26, but actually eased from a peak of nearly $1.3 billion in FY25 to about $1.15 billion this year. More telling, India's trade balance with New Zealand flipped from a $113 million surplus in FY22 to $23 million deficit in FY26. Indian exporters actually fell 20% year-on-year, while New Zealand's exports to India kept climbing. And despite all this activity, New Zealand still ranks a modest 80th among India's export destinations and 74th among its import sources. That's not a strong relationship yet. It's a relationship with enormous untapped room, which is exactly the gap this FTA is trying to close. Trade may dominate the headlines, but security sits quietly in the background. The Indo-Pacific is witnessing increasing strategic competition. China has expanded its footprint across the Pacific Islands and strengthened its naval presence. New Zealand has also become more vocal about regional security and maritime stability. India's discussions with Wellington are expected to include maritime cooperation, resilient supply chains, technology, cybersecurity, and regional stability. These discussions fit perfectly into India's larger Indo-Pacific strategy that focuses on open sea lanes, respect for international law, and stronger partnerships with like-minded democracies. New Zealand is also home to roughly 3 lakh people of Indian origin, close to 5% of the country's entire population, with Auckland alone home to over 1.75 lakh Indians. PM Modi is scheduled to address a large diaspora gathering during this visit, alongside meetings with business and sports figures. But not everything about the diaspora is as rosy. The issue India keeps raising directly with New Zealand is the pro-Khalistan activity on its soil. India has repeatedly flagged concerns about groups like Sikhs for Justice, banned as a terrorist organization in India. New Zealand MP Paramjit Parmar has tried to reassure that such activity involves only a tiny fraction of the Sikh community.
It's a very, very small numbers of people. You can actually count on your fingertips those who come out and do such protests. And talking to the wider community, I can tell you that they do not represent the views of the wider community, even the Sikh community here in New Zealand. I also want to emphasize on this that we value freedom of speech, and we value people having the ability to do peaceful protests.
But Wellington himself has said New Zealand does not want to import politics from overseas. a diplomatically careful way of avoiding a direct crackdown. There's also a darker undercurrent. Destiny Church leader Brian Tamaki has posted inflammatory videos calling for action against Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims in New Zealand, and police have reportedly seized weapons from his residence linked to those comments. PM Modi arrived in New Zealand immediately after a high-profile summit in Australia. There, India and Australia elevated defence ties through a new joint declaration on defence and security cooperation. The two countries agreed to deepen military exercises, maritime cooperation, interoperability and strategic coordination. Australia also committed to expanding uranium exports and strengthening cooperation in critical minerals and energy security. With Australia reinforcing India's Western Pacific partnerships and New Zealand expanding economic and regional cooperation, India is steadily building trusted relationships across the Indo-Pacific instead of depending on a single alliance. Put this top alongside Indonesia and Australia, and Modi's tour reads as one connected strategy. Indonesia gave India a maritime gateway near the Malacca Strait. Australia gave it a defence anchor, uranium and joint naval drills. New Zealand gives India a Pacific bridge, a fresh trade agreement and a diaspora relationship India is trying to formally reactivate after decades of neglect. This visit is ultimately about India's long game. Indonesia guards the Malacca Strait, Australia provides critical minerals, uranium and defence cooperation. New Zealand strengthens India's economic and diplomatic reach into the Pacific. Together, these partnerships reduce strategic dependence, diversify supply chains and strengthen India's presence across one of the world's most important geopolitical theatres. At a time when global power is shifting towards the Indo-Pacific, India is ensuring it has trusted partners across the region. This is diplomacy backed by economics, security and strategic planning. India's Pacific Playbook is expanding and New Zealand has now become an important chapter in that story.
If they had a nuclear weapon,
The old rules are breaking. Alliances are shifting.
Apologize again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Wars are redrawing maps. Oil routes can shake economies overnight. One election in America can impact markets in Mumbai.
no tax on tips.
One move by China can alter the balance in Asia. One conflict in West Asia can hit every Indian household. This is no longer a distant story. This is our story. Your story. Because for the first time in decades, India is not watching from the sidelines. India is rising. India is negotiating. India is balancing rivals. India is building military strength. India is shaping trade routes. India is becoming central to the new global order. And yet, most global news is still told through someone else's lens. Washington's lens, Beijing's lens, London's lens. But where is India's lens? Where is the platform that explains the world from our perspective? Welcome to India's Axis, a new destination for geopolitics, strategy and power seen through India's eyes. From Neighborhood Watch to the biggest global stories that matter to you. Why tensions in the Taiwan Strait matter to India. How one move by China can affect India's security. What turmoil in Pakistan means for regional stability. How Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bhutan shape India's neighborhood. Why oil choke points can hit your wallet. How wars abroad can reshape India's security. This is not noise. This is not shouting. This is not recycled headlines. This is sharp, intelligent storytelling. Daily explainers, war room analysis, strategic conversations. Because news is everywhere, but perspective is rare. And in the age of confusion, clarity is power. Axis is for the audience that wants more than headlines. The axis of global power is shifting. India is at the center of that shift. It's time the world was explained accordingly. To understand the world through India's strategic lens. Subscribe now.